So you all know Marinakis is my boy. He can do no wrong in my eyes. After all, he is the Greek father. But I have to look at this objectively and admit that Marinakis has made two huge mistakes. Welcome to your Forest News. Hi guys, hope you're doing well and welcome to your Forest News, where I can't lie to you guys. I am so angry about a few things. I'm more angry than I was yesterday, and I'm going to get into it all in a second. So as always, please make sure you've hit the like, make sure you've subscribed. Don't forget we're on Facebook now for all your Forest updates. To scan that QR code or click on the link that's pinned. And let's jump into this. You know what it is, guys? I wasn't annoyed at the Arsenal result. I was annoyed more at the Spurs result. I have to be honest. Once Spurs beat West Ham yesterday 3-0, that kind of tipped me over the edge in terms of some feelings that had been bubbling up. And I just want to share them with you and get your thoughts on them. Maybe some of you will agree, some of you won't. And it is around Marinakis. I think he's made a couple of huge mistakes and we need to discuss them. Because we cannot have lost that game to West Ham. That is a tragedy. After I saw how they played yesterday against Spurs, it is a sackable offence in itself, and technically Nuno did get sacked off the back of that, to lose to West Ham. They were so bad in that second half against Spurs. And we let them, at home by the way, because Spurs played them away, at home we let them score 3 goals against us. And this brings me on to my first mistake for Marinakis. I think Marinakis has done nothing wrong since 2017. He's the best owner in the Premier League, but I wouldn't swap him for the world. This is not a dig at Marinakis. This is me trying to be objective and talking about what's best for the club. And the first mistake for me was that Marinakis didn't do what the media label him with, the Mr. Hire and Fire, on a batting of an eyelid. Because that has been a huge mistake. Once Nuno did his presser before the Crystal Palace match, he should have been sacked there and then. Okay, maybe it was a day or two before the Palace match, I get that. But there is no way Nuno should have gone into that West Ham game in charge of this club. Because the West Ham result was on Nuno, his poor substitutions, his poor in-game management in that game was enough to cost us 3 easy points. Momentum would have been with us, would have been a little better off into the Arsenal game. And had he been sacked before the West Ham game, even if it's Ange, right? Even if it's Ange that came in, Ange would have had an easy game to come into at home against West Ham. The players would have gotten over the line. You saw the substitutions he made yesterday. Callum Mwenda would have had a huge impact at West Ham, as would have Bakwa. Maybe Douglas Luiz would have got minutes. And then Ange would have been given 2 weeks to be ready for the Arsenal game rather than 2 days. This for me has been a huge mistake, which was just underlined when I saw how bad West Ham were yesterday. So bad. And that's pretty much the only thing I've ever faulted Marinakis for was not sacking Cooper earlier than he did. But at the end of the day, look, it worked out. We ended up in Europe. Nuno did his thing and what have you. So I can't argue too much with that. The other mistake, I think, is Morgan Gibbs-White. We should have sold him. I don't know what's wrong with Gibbs-White right now. It almost feels like his heart is not in it. Now, I didn't want to sell him to Spurs, but I was not against selling him. And my agenda for not selling him to Spurs is because obviously my brother supports Spurs and I can't be bothered with another Andy Reid, Dawson kind of scenario and listening to that from my brother. But Forest didn't really have a reason, that's biased like mine is not to sell to Spurs. In fact, we've done plenty of business with Spurs. Jono went the other year for what was then our record transfer sale. I just don't think Gibbs-White's heart is in it right now. Gibbs-White at the moment, look, this isn't a go at Gibbs-White or a agenda campaign against him. For many a year, he was my favourite player at Forest. But I don't think anyone can now look at Gibbs-White's performances and think, this is a guy whose heart is fully in it. I thought he played better for England than he has done at all at Forest this season. Brentford, he was good. Crystal Palace, he cost us the goal. West Ham, he stunk it out. Should have been hooked after 15 minutes. And yesterday, I thought he was terrible as well. And I do worry that we're kind of cul-de-saced ourselves into a corner here, because the new contract got signed. He got made the highest paid player in Forest history on 150k plus. And he's also been given the captain's armband, which almost makes him undroppable. When his form is as bad as it is now, he needs to be dropped. And I wouldn't be surprised if in January or next summer, Forest or Gibbs-White looks to move on anyway. So we've only delayed the inevitable. And the real question is, will his value hold at 60 million? I thought 60 million was a fair price. I said it many times over the summer. Give him to Man City though, not Spurs. But that's a personal agenda. That's a personal agenda. And I don't know where we go forward with this. I look at McAtee. I didn't think he was brilliant when he came on, but I think he was more impactful than Gibbs-White was. McAtee, a player who's also got Champions League experience, is he going to get a sniff in that 10 position if Gibbs-White has to be the first one to start? What I will say is, if Gibbs-White gets dropped, I think it benefits him and us. I go back to Cooper. When Cooper dropped Gibbs-White, I can't remember what game it was, but he only dropped him for about 50, 60 minutes. He didn't start him, and then he brought him on. Someone in the comments will remember what team it was. Because he was going through a bad patch that time as well. He came on with fire in his belly, angry, disappointed that he'd been dropped. And he performed when he came on in that half. I think we need that with Gibbs-White. I think he needs to be dropped. Not just even for half a game, for a whole game. If I'm Ange, I'll be like, I've reviewed your performances. They haven't been up to your standards. I'm going to let you rest up, or whatever way he wants to flower it up. But you are going to be rested against Swansea and Burnley. And then let's assess where you are for the Europa League match. That's going to anger Gibbs-White. And I think he plays better angry, because we still have to utilise him. I'm not saying chuck him into the under-21s or whatever. I'm saying don't let his complacency overshadow what's important here, because I think he's become complacent. Now, Gibbs-White wasn't the only bad performance yesterday. There was stinkers up and down that pitch. There really was. Morato, Savano for me in the second half wasn't very good. Sangare in the second half wasn't very good. There was bad, but I don't think Callum Hudson-Odoi had a good game. And Doi wasn't that great either. Yes, I get it's against Arsenal before you lot come at me in the comments. But I'm just so disappointed with where we are to where we should be. That's the thing here. It all started with Nuno's self-destruct button. I think Marinakis was too slow to react to it. And I think it's cost us at least 3 points so far this season. Now Ange has to work around quickly. I think Ange will do okay at Forest. Look, we'll have Grumpy Old Reds tonight about 7:30. No doubt Ange will be saying Ange out and this is his fault and that's his fault and the other. But the fundamental cause of all of this was what Nuno did. Firstly, it's on Nuno. But I'm surprised Marinakis didn't react quicker. What do you guys think? We'll break it down. We'll do the game breakdown on Grumpy Old Reds tonight. I just had to get this off my chest. And you guys know how much I love Marinakis. So it even hurts me to think about criticising him. But that Spurs-West Ham game just did something to me last night that just fueled my anger, and I've still got it today. So get your thoughts in. Do you agree or disagree with me? I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure you've hit the like button. Make sure you've subscribed. Go and join us over on Facebook for your Forest updates. And we'll see you on Grumpy Old Reds tonight. Come on, you Reds.